I don't like the word addiction. It implies a loss of control. I wish we had another word, but I think that's the best we have right now. I want to talk about the truth about addiction and what they're not telling you about it. What you don't know can hurt you, and that's what we're going to talk about on today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and check out some of my free resources below. Alright, let's get to it. When you think about addiction, you think about somebody who's addicted to drugs, or addicted to sex, or addicted to alcohol. It's like they have no sense of control. They keep doing it compulsively, like something or somebody is making them do it. And they need to have a lot of rehab, and they need to fix their brains. But what if that wasn't true? What if there's a more insidious truth about addiction? What if addiction weren't real? One uncomfortable truth that I discovered about addictions and eating disorders is that there is no loss of control. We hear a lot about our primitive brain hijacking the higher brain. We use words like loss of control, compulsive, but I think these words distract us from the real problem. And the real problem is not addiction. The real problem is volition. The thing about addiction is that whatever you're addicted to, alcohol, drugs, sex, food, you're making a conscious choice. You're making a conscious trade-off. You're concluding that that option is your best option in the moment. You need to understand something about our brains. Our brains are constantly scanning the environment and looking at our best options. So if you're on a dating app, or you're in the aisle of a grocery store, or you're browsing movies, or you're thinking about what your next move is, you're constantly assessing what your options are. Very rarely are we just sitting, doing nothing, idling. We're constantly assessing our options. And even if we are idling and not doing anything, we're still contemplating, should I sit here and idle, or should I go do something else? Even today, I'm always assessing what is the best use of my time. Should I watch a module? Should I make a video? Which is what I decided to do right now. I'm also deciding, what am I going to eat? Should I have the oats? Should I have a banana? Should I just settle for an energy bar? Our minds are constantly scanning the environment. It's like we have this monitor, and then we have a selector, and we choose one of those best options. This is important to understand because this is what addicts do. They're constantly assessing their options. And people who consistently choose a substance or a behavior, they're doing it because they perceive that as their best option. There is no lack of control. There's no loss of control. We're only thinking that because we can't understand why somebody would consistently choose that. I often hear, who would choose an eating disorder? Who would choose an addiction? That makes sense. If you don't have that behavior, if that behavior or that substance provides no value to your life, it's easy to ask that question. But ask that question to somebody who's enmeshed in binge eating, or somebody who's on heroin or some sort of drug, and it becomes a little murkier. People choose drugs and substances because it makes them feel better. It provides a temporary escape, a temporary relief. Now, you might say that's a bad trade-off to make, and I would agree. Looking back on my years with eating disorders, that was a terrible trade-off to make. But at the time, maybe it made sense. Maybe that's what I wanted to do. Maybe I didn't want all of the benefits that I would have if I did not have that eating disorder. Maybe it was more important to have that instant gratification and that temporary fix than it was to have those long-term benefits like a better body and better fitness. I always told myself that I could wait another day or another week to achieve those goals. And that day and that week turned into many years. But in that one moment, when I had the moment to binge and purge or not to, I concluded that binging and purging was my best option. Now, what about food addiction? Is there such thing as food or sugar addiction? Again, I don't think that's true. I don't think the evidence supports that. When people consistently consume sugar or high volumes of palatable foods, whether it has sugar or not, they're doing that because it provides that escape. They can numb out. They can feel a little better. They can distract themselves temporarily from the emotions. To them, that's better than the benefits of not doing it. Again, it's all about trade-offs, and that's what life is. It is a series of trade-offs. Every time you choose to do something, you're voting no against everything else. If you decide to go out with one woman or one man, you're voting no against everybody else. If you're reading one book, you're voting no against every other book. If you decide to watch one particular TV show, you're voting no against everything else. If you decide to use this time to do, I don't know, some homework or write a report, you perceive that as your best option, as the best thing to do right now, based on the information that you have. Let's take a quick break. This channel would not be possible without Estetino artists. If you want to start producing content and produce your own YouTube channel, then check out the Creative Business Academy. There is a link below. Okay, back to the video. If you're scrolling on social media and you're just wasting time, maybe you're not really wasting time. Maybe that provides some sort of value to you. Maybe you feel like wasting your time or distracting yourself is better than whatever else that you could be doing. So the bottom line of this video is addiction isn't a loss of control. In fact, addicts always have control. But the truth is, they're choosing to repeat the behavior over and over because they perceive that as their best option. Not because something is making them do it, not because their primal brain is hijacking them. Nothing could be further from the truth. They're doing it because they like to do it, and it makes them feel better. And whatever temporary benefits that the addiction provides outweigh the long-term benefits of not doing it. I'm not saying that this is a good trade-off or it's a good choice or that we should respect the choice, but we need to understand that addicts and disordered eaters, they always have the choice, and they perceive that behavior as their best one. It makes no sense to us, but it makes sense to them. So if you have an eating disorder or you have some sort of addiction, the first step is to understand that, one, this is a problem that needs to be taken care of. But the second step is a little harder. It's believing that this needs to be taken care of now, and that you're the only one that can do it. As long as you perceive the addiction, for lack of a better word, as your best option, there's no chance of recovery. So when people relapse consistently or they revert back to their old behaviors, it's not because they're losing control. It's because, for whatever reason, they think that that's the best option at that time. This might sound like tough love, and it might sound like a cruel, harsh message, but it's actually really liberating, because the truth is, if addiction were about loss of control, and we didn't have control over our minds, and our minds weren't any more sophisticated than a rat's brain, that would be really devastating. The truth is, if we can choose an addiction, we can choose to recover, and we can choose to quit and move on with our lives. If addiction weren't a choice, then neither would recovery, and that would be a far more brutal truth than what I'm saying right now. Okay, one more note about eating disorders and food addiction. It's a little tricky. Unlike alcohol, drugs, sex, porn, you can avoid those forever. You don't need any of those. They're unnecessary, materials or substances. Unnecessary stimuli, I should say. Food is another matter. You have to eat. There's no choice. You have to eat something. Not too little, but not too much. So if you feel like you have a food addiction, or you eat compulsively, or you have some sort of disordered eating pattern, I feel you. It's hard, because you can't say, I'm never going to eat again. Good luck with that. You might last a few days, but then you're going to get really hungry and you're going to eat something. But binging, purging, night eating, overeating, these are all behaviors that you can end today, if you wanted to. Now, I have plenty of other videos on eating disorders and eating disorder recovery. I'm not going to go into that here. But just understand that if you are addicted to food, just understand nothing's hijacking you. Nobody's making you do it. It's all on you. You need to own this. So in conclusion, if you are addicted to something, food, sex, drugs, whatever, just understand it's your choice. And that every day you are bombarded with choices. You have so many things to choose from, and you're constantly selecting. And you're selecting the eating disorder. And you perceive that as your best choice. The good news is, you can leave it at any time, but you have to replace it with something better, and I'll talk about that in a future video. I'll give you a little preview. The benefits of quitting must outweigh the benefits of maintaining the habit. It's really as simple as that. But as long as you perceive your eating disorder as your best option, there's no chance of recovery. Hope you found this video educational and entertaining. Don't forget to subscribe and check out some of my free resources below. And there is also a link to speak with me directly. If you liked this video, I'm sure you'll like one of the other videos that you see on the screen. Click one of them and I'll see you there.